we are gonna make my favorite gingerbread cookies. Are you ready? All right, let's go. First up, we've got our room temperature butter inside our stand mixer. Using a stand mixer is an easy way to go, but you can use your handheld mixers as well. And we want to make sure it's room temperature so it can incorporate our sugar a lot easier into it as well. And we're just going to whisk that up first. And then we're going to stop the machine and incorporate our brown sugar. Brown sugar is delicious to use because it gives that caramel feeling inside your cookie dough, which is amazing. And at this point at home, my house, everyone's running around trying to do everything at the same time. So I give each child a job to do each. So one will be turning on the mixer, one will be scraping at this point as well. So then that way everyone has their own place in the kitchen, which they all seem to really like and take responsibility for it as well. And we're just gonna mix our butter and brown sugar until it's really nice and creamy together, okay? Don't forget to stop and scrape at intervals, and that way your butter doesn't stick to the bottom of the bowl and incorporates really nicely. And you can always use the whisk to help scrape off anything that gets stuck to your spatula, which I absolutely love. Okay, let's continue mixing. All right, so now our butter and brown sugar have combined together, and you can see already on the whisk that it's really nice and fluffy, and also that view there of the brown sugar and the butter, which is mixed in nicely. It's all aerated, which is fantastic. Now we're gonna move on to our next ingredients. So we'll just scrape down the edges and the sides. And then we've weighed out and measured our golden syrup and egg yolk. So those two will get incorporated now. Oh, this is so sticky, but delicious. There we go. And if you do have little ones with you doing this, they'll be licking all the extra equipment, making sure that nothing gets left behind, which is amazing. And our egg yolk. Whoop. And then we'll pop the machine back down and we'll mix it for a little bit longer now. Okay, this is smelling amazing already. So we're going to take off the whisk, make sure we tap all that out, take off our bowl. Okay, there we have it. Now we're going to add in our flour. So we're going to pop all that in. It doesn't have to be sifted, that's fine, just weighed out. Our allspice, our ground ginger, which is going to make it smell even more amazing. It's going to smell like Christmas in a bowl. And then our bicarbonated soda, so in that goes as well. Okay, now it's super important you don't put this back on the mixer, otherwise you'll get a really heavy, dense dough. So we don't want that. We want to mix that all in together by hand, so it's a gentle way of doing it, and we don't activate too much of the protein in the flour, which then translates to gluten, okay? Just going to mix it by hand until it just comes together, and then we'll pop it out onto the bench top, and this is where everybody can get involved and take a little piece each and start rolling it out from there, okay? This actually smells so good. Okay, now that it looks all crumbly and flaky, that's when we're going to pop it out onto the bench top, okay? Okay, so now that we've gently mixed the flour into our mixture, we're going to pop it down onto the bench top. And if you do have one of these little handy pastry cards, they are amazing. They're going to be able to help you keep everything on the bench as well as scrape from the bowl, which is fantastic. If not, you can use your hand or a spatula. And then once we've got all the mixture out, we're going to press it together. So it's kind of like we're making a pasta dough at the moment, and we're just going to kind of work the flour into the mixture a little bit more. And crumbly is good. Crumbly texture is what we want. So don't go overboard and add some water into this and bring it together. I mean, you can add a little bit if necessary, but if you add too much, then your biscuit gets too tough. So when you bite into it, it doesn't have that sort of soft, crumbly gingerbread feel to it. Okay, so you're just going to keep kneading it by hand. And as you can see, as I'm kneading it, it's turning from that sort of whitish brown color into a really nice brown color and coming together. Okay, you can still overmix this and it will become heavy and dense, but the main thing is just to bring it together and try not to add too much water to it. Okay, so we're going to mix it now for a little bit. This technique that I'm doing is I bring it to the center and use the palm of my hand and push down on it and really squeeze it together. And then that way it can form a dough together. This pastry card comes back in handy. Okay. So I'm just checking the consistency of it now by giving it a good squeeze to see how many pieces sort of fall out of it. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of water. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to turn the tap on, run my hands underneath, shake off excess water, and just slowly bring the dough together with that amount of moisture. See how my hands are damp but not dripping with water? That's what we're really after. We're just going to bring that together so then we don't get those little crumbly bits off to the side. Yes. That's brilliant. Okay, so we'll bring that all back in together. The dough feels really good. So now if I squeeze the dough, we don't get as much crumble bits off, which is fantastic, okay? So now at this point, you've got two options. You can either roll it out in between baking paper with 2 sheets on either side, which is what we're gonna do, or you can wrap it up in some cling film and let it cool in the fridge, so then it's a lot easier for you to roll. I like cooling mine after I've rolled it out. So then that way when I cut out my cookies, I can have a really nice shape to them. So I'm going to show you how to roll it out. I'm going to divide the dough into 4 bits. And we're going to get our baking sheets. And we'll do 1 bit at a time. Dough down in the center. It's a little bit like Play-Doh at the moment, which is fun. Fun for all ages, I say. And then very gently, we don't want to go in and go bam, 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 really rough, but nice and gentle pressure on the rolling pin, and we're going to roll it out. And then we can always check with our hands if it's even, spin it around, roll it in another direction. And this will take a little bit of time. So you want to roll it out to about 4 millimeters in thickness, and then you can roll all your sheets out and then just set them in the fridge so they can firm up a little bit before you cut. Because if they're nice and warm when you cut them, it's more likely that you're going to ruin the shape when you use the cookie cutter. So now that we've allowed the dough to sort of firm up in the fridge, we can go ahead and cut it. This is like a really good thickness for your dough. I mean, you can make your cookies thicker, thinner, it's completely up to you, but then this way they're in the oven for an ideal time. I wouldn't go any thinner than this one. Okay, so once your dough has set in the fridge and firmed up, then we can move on to cutting the shapes. So pick whichever shape you want, or whichever cutters you have or borrowed from family members or went out and purchased last year for Christmas. You can use anything you want to do with your design. I mean, you've got your traditional gingerbread man, which I think is really fun as a kid to sort of put eyes and mouths in the wrong positions and things like that. And then when you put it on, just press down really nice and firmly. Make sure you have the sharp edge facing down, and then the folded over metal bit is where you're going to rest your hand on top so it's not sharp for you. And then just lift that up, and then I just try and wedge in as many as I can get from one sheet, and then that's when the smaller ones do come in handy. If you've got like a little small space that you can't fit another gingerbread man, you might be able to fit like a Christmas tree in, or a little candy cane, or a little star, or whatever cutter you kind of have at home. So we're just going to do our best with this one, and we'll probably be able to get One more candy cane in the middle there. The best thing about this dough is that all those little offcuts don't go to waste. You can just roll them back up, roll them out with a rolling pin in between two sheets of baking paper, and then you can continue to cut until you have no dough left, which I think is fantastic. That way you can end up with lots of cookies, but I'm sure you've got lots of friends and family to share the love, okay? Once you've done that, I find the best thing to do to lift them off is invest in a little bent spatula, or even if you've got the flat spatula, you can do that. And it doesn't really matter which size you have or you buy. You're gonna slide it underneath and sort of lift up your little gingerbread man. Mine got a little stuck. Let's take away some of the edge. And put him in, slide him underneath, and then when he's in the right spot, lift him out. If it gets a little bit too soft to work with, then you can always pop it back into the fridge, firm it up again, and then that way it's easy to take out your shapes. So we'll take away some of this one. Might do the little Christmas tree first because he's a little bit smaller. Slide him in, pull him out, flip him over onto the tray, just like so, and continue until you've got your full tray, and then you'll pop that into your preheated oven at 180 degrees for 6 to 8 minutes. Keep in mind you can always add cooking if needed, but you can't ever take it out, so put your timer on for less time, so then you can check it and then put more cooking into it, or leave it in the oven for a bit longer if necessary. I absolutely love making gingerbread man icing, and you can use this for a lot of Christmas cookies, and this recipe is so easy. It's my favorite. So I'm going to walk you through how to do it. We've got some egg whites in the bowl that have been separated. Do not get any egg yolk inside that, please, otherwise it'll ruin it. And we've got our icing sugar. I know it looks like a lot, but I love making extra of this one because it is truly easy. And then this way my kids can make 6 different colors of icing, which they absolutely love, because I know they always fight about which color to make, okay? And not just kids, adults as well, I found. Okay, so icing sugar mixture, make sure that that's soft, because we get a few different types here. If you use the pure, it goes really rock hard and it doesn't make really nice smooth icing, okay? And then we've added in our water, and then we're going to add in our corn syrup. Okay, so you should be able to find this from Woolies and Coles. It is very accessible to buy this from the baking aisle. And we're going to add that in. This gives a lot of gloss and sheen to our icing, which makes it look so beautiful. And then once we've got all the ingredients inside, we pop it onto the stand mixer. And basically, the stand mixer just does all the work for us, which isn't that amazing, right? And then we're going to turn it on slow. If you go fast from the start, poof, your kitchen's going to be covered in icing sugar. So nice and slow, and then we can slowly increase it. Let it come together. Okay, it's not flying out, that's a good sign. It's just starting to mix through. We can see the egg whites coming to the top now. Let's slow it down just a little. Oh, there it is, starting to incorporate. Beautiful. All right, so now we're going to turn it up. And this will roughly take about 5 to 10 minutes to incorporate and get really nice and light and fluffy, but also have that beautiful sheen to it as well. So we're just going to let it mix now for a couple of minutes on really high speed. Okay, so we've been mixing this in the mixer for about 5 minutes now. Time to have a look. Okay, so you can already see that the icing itself is quite thick. Now, this is the only technical part that you're going to do with the icing, and that is to gauge how much water you want to put in, okay? I would suggest for certain colors, you make them a little bit thicker, so you can do outlining, those colors being a white or a black. So you take a portion out of those, and so you could set that aside for some of the outline colors. And then the inside colors, the colors that are going to fill, then you want them to be a little bit wetter, okay? So I'm going to take some out for my outline, my black one, and then I'm going to start making this a little bit wetter because I don't want it to be as sticky when I pipe it, and I want it to actually fill in my cookie, and then that way I don't have to mix it around too much on the actual cookie. So I'm going to take part out now. Yes. So it is very sticky, as you can see, which is fantastic, which makes the lines on the outside bits a little bit easier to do. Keep in mind, like if you want to make that a little bit thinner later on, you can as well. You can add some water into the bowl separately too. Whereas this way, it's kind of like safe keeping it for later. And then we're going to add a little bit of water to the rest because all the rest will be fill-in colors. So I'm going to get this to the right consistency and texture. So I just turn it on like a medium speed, and then I grab some water, and then I slowly add it in, and I just watch how it affects the actual icing. And I have a look at how the whisk is dragging around. That usually generally tells me if I've got enough water in there or not. I'm going to go maybe 2 more and wait for that to mix in. Keep in mind that I'm doing an extra batch. So I'm doing 2 times the recipe because I love making lots of icing. It doesn't go astray. Okay. Oh, I think that's beautiful because what happens is when the whisk drags through, there's some lines there, but then those lines fill in after 3 seconds, which is fantastic, which is what I'm looking for. Now I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to show you how to put in a color, okay, for this icing. And it's super important for this icing that you use gel colors or powders. They're the best type of coloring you can do because any liquid colors are going to change the consistency and texture after you've just gotten it perfect, okay? So let me grab a bowl. And we're going to set some aside for a color. And because we're doing Christmas, like we have to do green, like it's just a must, right? So now we've got our icing that's separated. We'll grab our food powdered coloring. And this is personal preference. Because it's powder, you're not going to change the consistency. You can go in with a lot, a little, or just mix it in little by little until you get your desired color. So I'm going to start off with a good amount, because I know I've got a good amount of icing in there, and we're just going to mix this through. I can tell already that I'm definitely going to need more. I want this to be popping. At the moment, it's kind of like a pastel. So I definitely want more in there. Let's go more. Yes, that looks great. This is the part where I probably won't let any children sort of take the lead in adding the coloring, because that could end in a disaster, I know, but with adult supervision. So they can do the mixing part here, and then you can add in the coloring, because I feel like you'd be a little bit safer with it, especially if you have white bench tops. Okay, look at this color. I think I want to go more. And again, it's personal preference. I mean, this green is really nice, but I like it to be a little bit darker, so we're going to go in some more. It's getting there. And I think texture-wise, it's really nice. You see how I lift it up and it sort of has some shape, but then spreads out, which means it's going to fill your cookie nicely. Oh, yes. Lastly, what I want to show you is how to put it in a piping bag, just a little simple technique of how to do that. I know you might have your style already, but I guess no harm in showing you what I do. So you can grab a glass jar, a cup, a measuring jug, anything that your piping bag can fit over the top on, and then you basically just stick the pointy bit inside the cup or the glass, and then the outer bit you just roll down the edges. And this way you've got all this beautiful support of the jar as you're putting your mixture in, and it holds it all into place. I generally don't use nozzles with my cookies because then I can cut the hole to all different sizes to whatever I need, and each icing will be a different size hole. So your outlining will be like a very small hole, but your filling might be like a little bit bigger, so you can get the icing on a little bit quicker. And then the beauty of this jar is I can wipe the spatula on the edge and it doesn't move out of place. It also holds it all upright, so I'm not making a big mess on the bench top. And then we can roll the edges and sides up, give a little shake, push all our icing, try not to get any air pockets because that, you know, isn't very nice when you're icing the cookie. And then you can either use an elastic band or you can do a tie in the top of your piping bag so nothing falls out the other end. And there we have it. We've got green icing for our gingerbread cookies. Okay, so now our cookies have been cooking in the oven for a little bit. Let's have a look at them, see how they are. Oh yes, they're beautiful. So the way that you're going to check to see if they're ready is when you touch lightly on the top. Keep in mind they're really, really hot, but if you touch lightly on the top, your fingerprint doesn't make a little indentation into it, okay? And then once they're ready, you want to transfer them to a cooling rack, so you can use the same utensil that you used before to take them out after you cut them, and then slide them over. Be careful because they are very pliable while they're still hot, so you want to make sure that you don't bend them or stack them on top, and you allow them to cool completely before icing them, okay? And then once they're cooled completely, usually I do this the day before and then I ice the next day, have the icing ready to go, so it's like less stress and more fun activities for you and the whole family